Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are several different approaches to survival planning and numerous survival techniques. Which techniques are most useful to you largely depends on what kind of situation you find yourself in. You should make a point to learn as much as you can about survival in as broad a range of scenarios as possible. You can't afford to assume that you'll never find yourself in any given situation. Now, so far we discussed survival with the assumption that you're able to stay in your own home. This is also known as in-place survival. But you'll also have to consider and plan for a situation in which you're forced to evacuate your house or even your local area, in which case you'll need to have an evacuation plan. Don't leave it to the last minute to figure out what your next move should be, because we rarely make the right decision when we're surrounded with panic and confusion. Try to make arrangements with your friends and relatives who are out of town or out of state, and plan a location to meet with your family members in the event that you're separated when a disaster strikes. Get to know the locations and contact numbers of your local disaster services and shelters, and plan alternate and lesser routes out of town in case you have to get out of Dodge in a hurry. You should also get to know your neighbors and get involved with your community. Back in the day, people used to get together in neighborhoods and towns and discuss issues that affected everyone, and they all pulled together in a disaster or when there was a common threat. And these days we're a lot more insular. People don't even know their own neighbors anymore. And I know it sounds cliche, but no man is an island. The more we get to know each other and the more we get involved with our communities, the better off we'll all be in a disaster of any kind. These are the people who could possibly save your life, or maybe you might save theirs. Maybe you could organize a planning group in your community so you'll have support and resources in place in case something goes down. But all you really have to do is get to know the folks around you. Now, remember earlier when I was talking about survival food and I mentioned a 72-hour bag? This is also known as a go bag or a bug-out bag. This is a crucial element to any evacuation plan. Your 72-hour bag should contain everything you need to survive unassisted for at least 3 days, hence the name. Now, this is something that you should put together yourself. There are commercially available 72-hour kits that you can buy, but honestly, I think they're pretty lame. Most of them contain little more than a few Band-Aids and a couple of candy bars, and I don't think any of them come close to providing everything that you need to survive for a 3-day period. Now, you should put together a bag for yourself and for everyone else in your house, and have it ready to go and easily accessible at a moment's notice. Because if you have to split in a hurry, you don't want to be scrambling around trying to grab everything you think you're going to need, because you'll always forget something. Now, I'm going to go over the list of all the items that you should include in your 72-hour bag, and this is in no particular order of importance because they're all important. Now, in your 72-hour bag, you should have enough food and water to last you for at least 3 days. Now, this is where MREs and emergency rations like Mayday bars come in. They're really light, they're compact, they're easy to pack and transport. You don't want to be lugging around canned food that'll take up space and weigh you down. And you'll also need a can opener to get them open. So this is a good area where the MREs really shine. You want to bring a warm change of clothes with you, and that also includes a sturdy pair of shoes or boots, preferably, some rain gear like a poncho, and also a warm hat. You'll need a pocket knife, as in a folding knife, flashlight as clutch. That's very important, and it's also a good idea to throw in some glow sticks as well. A blanket or a sleeping bag. Again, can't do without that. In an emergency situation, chances are pretty good that your cell phones won't work, so you might want to think about having a two-way radio. This is kind of an optional item. It's not really essential, but it's a good thing to think about. You want to have a portable radio so you can keep up with the news and what's going on in your area. This should be a battery-powered radio, and you can also get a crank-powered radio as well. You just crank it up, and that creates a charge to run the radio for a while. And also extra batteries for your flashlight and your radio if you have a battery-operated radio. You want to have a whistle and a signal mirror with you in case you need to signal for if you're in a distress situation and you don't want to have a way for people to find you. A whistle is good at night. Obviously, a signal mirror won't do you any good in the dark, but a signal mirror is good during the daytime if you're stranded or you need help. Toothbrush and toothpaste, that's obvious. That should probably be near the top of the list. If you're on any kind of prescription medication, you want to make sure you have a 3-day supply in your 72-hour bag. Bring magic markers and paper so that you can post notes or make signs or get attention if you need help. A local map is important to have so you can find your way around. Duct tape. Duct tape is important for any situation. Duct tape is good for anything, so you should always have duct tape whether it's an emergency or not. Plastic sheeting or a tarp. This is for a improvised shelter. You can set something up with tie a piece of rope between a couple of trees and peg the plastic sheeting or the tarp over the rope and make yourself an impromptu tent. Or you could pack a tent as well. That tends to take up a little more space, so this is good in a pinch. Space blanket. In lieu of a regular blanket or a sleeping bag, these are those mylar reflective blankets that I guess they originated from the space program, and they're really good at retaining your heat. They'll keep you nice and warm, and they're also very compact and lightweight. If you wear prescription glasses, you should have a spare pair of glasses in your bug-out bag, as well as a hearing aid. Not many people have spare hearing aids, but if you do, then that's a good item to include, as well as other vital personal items that you really can't get around without. A copy of personal documents, such as insurance forms, health insurance, medical records, whatnot, and copies of your IDs. And extra keys to your house or your car. Those are good to have in case you lose your keys, obviously. And emergency cash. This would be small bills, and you want to have quarters as well in case you need to use a payphone. If you can even find a payphone, I don't even know if they're around anymore. But you might need to get buy something from a vending machine. If you're stuck somewhere and you lost your food or whatever and you're hungry, you'll be bumming if you don't have any quarters. List of emergency contact numbers, and that's always good. Drug and food allergies. That's in case you're unconscious and you can't speak for yourself. You'll have that to speak for you. Any special needs items for children, seniors, disabled people that you might be traveling with. Chlorine tablets for sanitizing water in case you have to rely on water from suspicious sources and you can't build a fire and boil the water. This is a good second choice. Boiling water is always the best choice, especially if you're sanitizing water in the wild and you're not sure about the source. You should always boil it whenever you can, but if you can't boil it, then the chlorine tablets are good to have. Fire starting tools, matches, lighters, magnesium rods. There are all kinds of different fire starting tools that you can get at camping supply stores. Magnesium rods are one of the more popular ones. That's a military issue fire starter. But lighters as well. You should always have a few lighters on your person and in your kit. Matches to a lesser degree, they get wet, and the waterproof ones even still are not as reliable. I like to rely more on a good Bic lighter. I don't even smoke, but I always have a lighter on me, and I keep lighters around. It's a good idea to have those. Crowbar, that's for building, tearing down, and you can also use it as a defensive weapon. First aid supplies. This requires a little explanation. Don't go with a first aid kit that your typical first aid kit that you might see in the workplace, or you might have one at home. You want to have a first aid kit that's a little bit more extensive. Really, you should have two first aid kits. One complete survival first aid kit that has a broad range of items, so you can handle all kinds of injuries, like broken bones and severe injuries. And I've got a complete list of the items that you would need for a comprehensive first aid kit. You can get that at CompleteSurvivalist.com, as well as your portable first aid kit. Now, I can't get into everything here just because of time constraints, but some of the items that you should include in your bug-out bag are bandages, the adhesive type, as well as the ACE bandage type, the cloth bandage. And if you don't have any ACE bandages, you can use clean strips of cloth and put that in your bug out bag. Disinfectant for wounds, aspirin, Tylenol, whatever pain reliever you prefer, gauze pads of various sizes, hand sanitizer, that's important. You want to keep your hands clean, not only for handling wounds, but also for eating. You're not going to be able to wash your hands whenever you want to, and you want to keep your hands clean so you don't get sick. Sewing needles of various sizes and sutures. Sutures can be obtained on various online sources, and you can also use fishing line in a pinch or regular thread if you have to. Just make sure that you sterilize it if you need to stitch up a wound. Simple cooking gear, that includes a small pot, a large cup, and utensils, various utensils that you might need for eating, and try to keep it simple. You can get the typical camping type cooking gear and pack that in with your 72-hour bag. Nylon rope or cord, indispensable in a survival situation. You're really going to need that in your bag, as well as some good strong twine. Twine will serve purposes that the nylon rope might be a little too big for. So that about wraps it up for your 72-hour bug out bag. Obviously, there are some other things that you might want to add to your bag that will be convenient to have as well. And there were some items that didn't make it to the list that I debated whether or not to include them. But as far as the essentials go, these items cover everything that you'll really need to survive over a 72-hour period. So now you know the beginning steps to start preparing for an unexpected disaster or an infrastructure collapse. But bear in mind, this is just the very tip of the iceberg. There are so many other vital skills and techniques that you need to know if you really want to survive any given situation. I literally know some people who have a case of bottled water in the basement and they keep a few extra cans of beans in the cupboard and they think they're ready to handle anything. Well, that might help them if they can't make it to the store for a day or two, but it's a long way from really being prepared. And actually, I wasn't much better when I first started off on this path back in Arizona several years ago. I figured all I needed to know was how to build a fire, how to find water, and what I should do if a snake bit me. Well, I soon found out there's a lot more to survival than just that. Even more so if you no longer have the option of just packing it in and heading back home. I also discovered that some survival skills are obvious, while others you don't even know that you need them until you find yourself in that situation. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And you don't want to be in a life or death situation when you find that out. Because nature, like life in general, has a way of throwing a curveball at you just when you think you got a handle on everything. So you should never stop learning about survival techniques. Start thinking in terms of how you would live if you suddenly had to do without all the modern conveniences. Consider the most primitive scenario and ask yourself what you would need to know in order to not only survive, but to thrive and flourish in that environment. Like I said, it's not just about survival, it's about living. Start building yourself a reference library of survival skills and actually practice them. Don't just put it on a shelf thinking you'll look it up when the time comes, because some things only take a few minutes to learn, but others require time and practice to become proficient at it. In an emergency, you don't want to be flipping through a book hoping you can find what you need and successfully implement it in time. Again, I'm not suggesting that you start living your life in fear and make yourself a tinfoil hat. Fear is actually one of the main reasons why people don't learn survival skills. They think somehow it makes them paranoid, or they're admitting that something terrible is going to happen. Well, I'd rather be prepared and have nothing come up than to be faced with a disaster and not know what to do. And it doesn't require any drastic lifestyle changes either. You don't have to start living in a hut out in the woods somewhere and change your name to Grizzly Adams. Many survivalist practices, like canning your own food and building a food bank, can be helpful and enrich your everyday life for you and your family. And I can tell you there's nothing more rewarding than the self-confidence that comes from knowing how to be self-sufficient and truly independent. And that applies to your everyday life as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. It was certainly my pleasure to bring it to you. I think this is very important information that everybody should be aware of. And if you really want to get a big head start on building your survival knowledge base, you should check out my site at CompleteSurvivalist.com. My goal is to provide the most comprehensive survivalist resource out there, so I'm constantly working to add new tools and information for survivalists every week on subjects ranging from simple preparedness to total self-sufficiency and everything else in between. So I hope to see you there. Until then, take care, God bless, and stay free.